Jason Carroll, who's sports director at Pig Trail Nation, joining us. And usually by now, Jason might be on the couch messing around with the cat, listening to various press conferences, and just enjoying the overall warmth here at the Bachelor Pad. But today is a different day because it's snowy outside, and he is stuck home. Jason, Kiki misses you. How are you?
I'm good. And let me go ahead and start by giving you some travel advice. Why don't you wait till like 6 o'clock on Friday morning to drive to Texas?
Oh, man. Because I've got an 11 o'clock radio show to do and then a 7 o'clock baseball game. And I wonder, like, where is it I'm supposed to stop and do the radio show?
Just call in and do the radio show from the phone while you're driving.
Wow. Is that not dangerous, like hosting a radio show while I've got my free hands on the wheel? It sounds like that might actually be a bad idea.
I don't know.
We'll see.
Isn't that illegal driving with?
Isn't that illegal what?
Isn't that illegal driving with earbuds in your ear?
Driving while broadcasting?
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't think so.
You can't hear all the people honking behind you when you got your earbuds in.
Yeah, I don't want to get a DWB. Are you sure you want me to make it? Are you trying to get me hurt, Jason?
No, I'm trying to keep you safe because driving in the dark on those
good point.
Oklahoma highways,
That's a really good point.
You're right about that, man. I just want to make sure I get there. That's all, and safely. So maybe you're right. Well, I'll try to figure it out. So, I guess the big question right now is there going to be a game tomorrow? Is it all dependent upon whether or not Florida can arrive? Because I know they're supposed to get here. It's 7 o'clock tonight at XNA?
Yeah,
is that really what we're waiting on?
They're scheduled to leave at like 5 o'clock our time, 6 o'clock Gainesville time, and fly here and get here around 7:15. I would assume that the runway at XNA is going to be cleared off enough for them to get here. I wouldn't think there's any issue with them getting out of Gainesville. So I expect the game to be played. I don't know if there'll be fans there at all tomorrow. But it's a game that Arkansas desperately needs to get in to keep this winning streak going, and it's another pretty good opponent who hadn't played since February 3rd, so you don't know how Florida is going to be on the court tomorrow. But I would assume they play the game at this point.
I mean, it really is. It's an opportunity to beat a team that is right behind you in the net standings. It's the only time Arkansas plays Florida unless they meet in the SEC tournament. And right now, like I feel like you still have work to do to get off that 8-9 line. Like maybe right now, if the tournament was seeded today, you'd be off the 8-9 line. But you still have 6 games left, and there's a lot to be decided. So, like tomorrow is one of those games that could really make that sort of decision, like whether you get off 8-9.
Yeah, I think you need to go 2-0 this week and try to split next week. Now, if you go 4-0 over the next 4, that's huge. But beating Alabama and LSU at home, I think you need to split those. But you definitely need to win both games this week if you get to play both. And Florida is an opportunity for a possible quad one home win, depending on how they end up finishing up, to where they might finish in that top 30 and get you a quad one home win, which would be another addition to what you need. I mean, you hope Kentucky can play their way into that top 75, so you get that quad one road win. You need to start getting some quad one wins, and they got a couple, but they need some more to really work their way up to maybe a 5-6 seed if they could play this thing right.
So I think one thing that we've noticed watching the Hogs in this hot streak, it felt like you knew you'd usually be able to count on Moses Moody to give you your 14 to 18, maybe occasionally 25, and be out there for almost the entire game. But it's Justin Smith emerging from this ankle injury and really stabilizing things a little bit more on the inside. Jalen Tate emerging recently, and from what we've seen from Connor Vanover, really in the last 4 games, like you'd hope he could pull it off for the entire game. It's mostly been half by half. But it feels like these 3 players, the way that they've emerged, have really had a lot to do with Arkansas playing their best basketball of the season and playing their best basketball at the right time.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see how much different this team is with Justin Smith playing against Alabama and LSU next week because, he wasn't out there for that game or those 2 games when they got blown out. He's a difference maker, and you add him to the consistency, like you said, with Moses, if Jalen Tate continues to play the way he's playing, and then you add those pieces around. You don't really need Connor to give you a whole lot, but if you could get 10-5 from him every night, that's a big get. And then you have Devo Davis playing well, and occasionally getting some stuff from Note. I mean, they've got the pieces if they can perform. 3 or 4 guys giving them consistent stuff. They've got a chance to make a little bit of a run and get a good seed in the tournament and maybe make it to that second weekend.
Jason Carroll joining us here on Halftime. Jason, Tommy Kraft of the Morning Rush posted an interesting question this morning. We talked about it prior to the show, and I think we sprinkled it in a little bit throughout the show. Was last week or this past week the most successful week in Razorback basketball in several years? I mean, yes, I understand Kentucky is down, but you still went to Kentucky and got a W, and then you beat a top 10 Missouri team. And we kind of posed it that was like, it's interesting to think about a more successful week for Razorback basketball. In my mind and his also went back to the week when you beat Oklahoma and Texas in the same week. So I'm just kind of curious from your standpoint, you couldn't have scripted a better week for Razorback basketball as far as getting good quality wins.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would call it the best week. I mean, I still go back to some of those teams with Macon and Barford and Dusty Hannas and some of those guys where they might have had something better. I mean, it was a critical week for what you're trying to get done and making it to the tournament. But again, you can't come back this week and then go 0-2 against a Florida team that you should beat at home and a bad Texas A&M team. So it was an important week to bounce back and continue that win streak, and play well. But you've got to keep it going. And so, yeah, they got a quad 1 win, maybe a quad 1 win against Kentucky if that ends up playing out. But I think the bigger weeks are still ahead, and they've got one tomorrow night. But then next week is the huge week where if you can win both of those, you're solidifying yourself for a really good seed in the tournament, because that would mean that you beat the top 3 teams in the league within a 2.5-3 week span, and then you're playing yourself into possibly playing yourself into a tie for first in the SEC, which would be another big thing from where they started to where they could be after next week. So I think next week's big. Yeah, last week was big. I don't know if it was the biggest since that Oklahoma-Texas run, but they've got to follow it up. They got to keep going. And now that you're ranked in the top 25 for the first time in 3 years, you really want to keep it going and keep going up that ranking.
I want to step outside Razorback basketball for a second, get your thoughts on the probably biggest college football news of the day and probably of the week. Gus Malzahn heading to Central Florida. That's what the sources are saying. We haven't heard anything confirming
it's confirmed.
It's been confirmed. Okay.
Confirmed, yeah.
Okay. So what do you make of the move for Malzahn heading to Central Florida with Terry Mahajer?
I think it's a good situation for him. I mean, there's pressure to win there based off of what Scott Frost built and kind of what Heifel kind of destroyed a little bit, honestly. I mean, they haven't won like they should have since Frost went to Nebraska. But I think Gus can win there. I think it's a good spot for him because had he gone to Tennessee, we all know what the pressure at Tennessee would have been. You go to Central Florida, you go win 9-10 games there, everybody's happy. You're, winning your league, and maybe you get to that 12-win season one time, and you're in the conversation for the playoff eventually. So I think it's a good spot for him. Maybe he's there a couple of years and then moves on to the next big job. But for him and for Mahajer, I think they have a working relationship with that 1 year in Jonesboro, and so it was a no-brainer for Mahajer to go get Gus, and why not take a chance? I mean, Gus, you got 21 sitting there in the bank, go make a couple million a year and hang out and coach a little bit.
I just think it's so interesting how there's, we see these examples recently of athletic directors bringing their coach that they had hired at the previous place with them. And Hunter Yurachek, I guess, tried to do the same thing, when he was looking for the basketball coach after letting go of Mike Anderson, if you believed, the rumors of going right after Kelvin Sampson. But, Heupel just follows Danny White. Gus Malzahn kind of follows Terry Mahajer. Although Mahajer wasn't the guy that hired him. I didn't think he hired him for that job. It might have been the last
He just
guy.
Worked with him in 2012.
Yeah, he worked with him, right.
I think the Heupel, I hear what you're saying, but I think part of it's a lazy, like Tennessee, I think that was a lazy hire getting Josh Heupel. And that was just, I don't want to work too hard to try to find somebody and persuade them to come in. That's the outsider point of view, in my opinion. I think with the Malzahn thing, he's the best coach available with the best credentials available that Central Florida could have gotten. And if, you're Terry Mahajer, you go, yeah, let's hire him. You're Gus, hey, an opportunity for me to go to a situation that's not as high pressured. I can go out there, recruit, try to build this thing into where it was with Scott Frost, maybe take it to the next level, and then I move on. But I think those hires are a little different. And I know what you're saying about Sampson, and I don't know how much truth there was to that, because when we talked to Hunter about it, it wasn't necessarily something that was really going to happen to begin with. So I think he was a candidate, but I don't think it was full-blown, this is going to be the guy, and then it fell apart. Mm-hmm. So I think sometimes ADs, they move to a new job, and it's just easy to go after the person instead of going after the right fit for that program. So I don't think Heifel's going to work at Tennessee, and I think it was a lazy hire, and we'll see if White works out, long term for them.
Jason, stay warm, stay dry, and I think you're right. Maybe I'll try to do the Friday morning drive. Thanks for looking out for me.
I mean, if worst comes to worst, you can do the show remotely from your phone and have SmackDown host the show.
Worst comes to worst, we can just have SmackDown and Matty T do it. And
that's an A+ show right there.
We'll see how that works.
Yeah, I just think, they could do their Total Request live on the air for 2 hours. And
here we're playing all the hits.
All the hits on halftime.
You guys need real VJ names, though, at that point.
DJ Matty T.
No VJ names from when MTV first.
Video jockey.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misheard. I'm sorry.
Video jockey.
Video jockey.
We're doing, also YouTube and the like. Stay tuned. Halftime to wrap up with a cherry on the top after this.